Okay, so if everyone can see my screen, we're just looking at NetSuite homepage here. I've got no dashboard or anything. I have an administrator role here. So I'm just going to provide a quick overview of, kind of how our software is going to be installed and sit on your account. So you're going to have NetSuite. You're going to have your food and bev SKU, which comes with prerequisites for our products, things like multi-location inventory, being able to process work orders and assembly builds. That's prerequisites for our one-to-many to work. So you're already going to have those. So right off the bat, we'll be able to install both our one-to-many and our Catchweights solutions. So the way these kind of NetSuite softwares work is I'm going to install some custom fields, which we've seen a little bit of. These are like additional fields on records and items. It'll also place custom records, which allows us to store additional data that you can then use in save searches like you've seen. And we'll also install custom scripts onto your account. Our solution lives entirely within NetSuite, and that's powerful for you guys because these native NetSuite features like save searches, things like that, you'll be able to filter those and use our data in your account, just like all these other entities like transactions. Another thing with our software, when we install it, is it's only going to cause a behavior on your account when you're working with a catchweight item or when you're working with a one-to-many batch. So we kind of try to build it with a philosophy where if you're not interacting with it, you won't even notice it's there. So if you don't have a catchweight item on a transaction or you're not doing a build, you won't even know it exists. So we have some stuff that lives directly in NetSuite, and then we've also built our own client interface to handle some of the more complicated tasks with management that we do there. So that's a little bit just kind of preview of how these custom softwares will sit and work in NetSuite. So first thing I like to introduce, and thanks to Charles for doing such a great job. It's really our demos go better when you have already a little bit of a taste for NetSuite. So first thing I start off with is with Catchweights. And what is a catchweight item? It's very important. So what our system attempts to define catchweight item as is any item that you use 2 units with. So it's not enough that I have 800 pounds of chicken. I also want to know how many eaches is that? How many cases do I have? So for our system, catchweight item is any item that you're going to capture 2 units with. This is anytime you're moving inventory, whether you're fulfilling or receiving, you're working with 2 units on that transaction. I'm looking at a lot numbered inventory item here. So we already saw a little bit about units type and costing methods. So I'm looking at a whole chicken item here, and I've chosen pounds as the unit type in NetSuite. What that means is I cost the inventory in the pounds. When I look at NetSuite inventory detail, it's going to show me pounds. And anything on a transaction, the rate is going to be in pounds. So for this whole chicken, I work and cost with this item in pounds. Now I want to use this whole chicken, excuse me, as a catchweight item, because for my purposes, I also want to know how many each is. So I'm counting my chickens. That's not typically something we see, kind of dependent on the size of the manufacturer. That we see is usually just pounds. They kind of drive a truck over the scale. You got 960 pounds of chicken, not usually counting the eaches. So for the example, that's what we're doing. It's not just pounds of chicken. It's also eaches. And then I'll actually dive into the catchweight table and see how we can use units beyond the pound and the each there. Feel free to stop me at any time if there's any questions, by the way. I don't mind. So now we've got a preview of our item. It's set up in pounds, and I'm going to jump in, and we're going to take a look at our client application where we manage catch weight unit setup. So when we install our software, really thing you'll notice first and is this processing. This is our client application that we build on your account, not only an external website. This is sitting right here on your NetSuite account. And we've built this out for the purpose of just providing a nice place to manage your catch weight tables and one-to-many record setups. And through this custom application, we can provide a pretty nice experience for doing that. So I've found this whole chicken item from earlier. I've pulled it up in our client application here, and this is where I'm able to set catch weight inventory settings. So I have my variable units here. I've gone ahead and enabled this item for variable units. When you turn on this toggle, this is the primary flag for our software. The second you turn this on, the system's going to mandate that you have a correct table and you're doing everything correctly. So like I said earlier, if you never activate this, you would never know that our software was on your accounts. This is the primary trigger. This is when you turn this on, you're saying, okay, this is not just pounds. I also need something else here. And then we call it a serialized inventory option. This lets us kind of add a layer of granularity to your inventory in NetSuite. Example of this would be you have 10 cases in inventory that total 600 pounds, but you need to know, okay, one case in there is 54 pounds. The other case is 58.7 pounds. NetSuite, other inventory systems are going to show you that as 10 cases at 600. If you activate serialized inventory and then receive them in individually, it's going to remain individual, and we assign a serial number to that. So we have an advanced inventory option if you have a need for that. We see some use for that in food and bev, as they like to keep tracks on in individual cases of a lot. So that's an option there. And then we're going to look at our catch weight unit table. This is for that whole chicken there. A lot of configuration options here, and we get some flexibility around how you cost your items. So we saw with this whole chicken, this is costed by the pounds in NetSuite. We also saw Charles, he showed us the finished good bucket of shredded chicken, and that was costed by the each. That's a fixed weight 8-ounce item. But if we had an item where you say it's cases in NetSuite where we cost it, we can still track pounds underneath that. A use case we've seen for that is like with cheese. You may go buy a 2-ounce each of cheese, but secretly it's a 1.97, and they'll track that in their system to kind of have a manufacturing variance. So with our table, whether you're working with the item in pounds or eaches from a costing basis, we can still track the pounds, whether that's the costing unit or not. So I'll kind of give a overview of our catch weight table here. I've got pounds, each, cases, and loads. These are all locked. You might be wondering, Mark, why are these all locked? And that's because I have live inventory in the system, and it would be really dangerous for you to change the pack size of inventory that's in the system and on transactions. So once you set up your table and start working with it, it's fixed until you were to get your inventory out, were you to make changes to a pack size. I can still add a new unit. So if a vendor were to say, hey, we're going to start, we have a new option for purchasing or selling that unit, I can add in new units, but I can't change existing units that are being used on transactions or in inventory. To look at this table, like I said, we have pound, each, case, and load. This first flag you'll see is NetSuite unit. That is a literal connection to this unit here so that we know how you're costing. And then on down from there, each is case and loads. This value here is our average pound quantity. You can see this is LVU, and then I've said pound is what that means. So going on down the line, we have 2 pound average eaches. a case of 12. So we could perhaps purchase a crate or a load from the vendor, and they're going to either send us a dozen or 720 chickens. So this is a way we can kind of set up different purchase pack sizes that are at like a fixed, hey, always a dozen chickens per crate, or always 720 chickens when you get a truckload there. So that's a little bit about the front of the table. It's kind of the hard part. And then the back part of the table, very simple. You can set up default units for use on a transaction. So the way I have this set up is, I'm always going to purchase this by the load from the vendor. If I'm doing a transfer order, maybe I'm moving some cases that came in from the load. And then if I'm using the item as a component, this whole chicken is the component of an assembly. I'm able to say, hey, anytime we're using this item on a work order, use that each unit, because that's what we do with manufacturing. So that's intro for catchweight table here. I'm going to jump over to a purchase order.
While Mark, while you're jumping over, just to kind of reiterate, this is the setup of the catchweight. So, for you all, I'm sure a lot, the vast majority of this will be done in the setup process in the beginning, and you very may well never need to revisit unless something changes on the catchweights, or if you need to add a catchweight. So again, I don't know if you're adding different foods or different products, but I mean, if you're pretty set on your products and everything like that, then largely that'll be set up at the beginning, and then you will just operate that, maybe reviewing it every 6 months, a year, if an average weight or something changes. But for the most part, that's just largely in the setup process.
And it hit that table during the setup process, we can have it because I think any given whole chicken, my understanding is some of it's used some of it is sold as chicken parts, typically I'll call them more attractive parts, the breast, wing, leg. Some of that same little chicken is going to be essentially scrap, skin and bones and fat are going to be taken out of it. And then the rest of it is most likely going to be cooked and shredded. So a given single chicken that might weigh 6 or 7 pounds, is that something how do we handle that? Is that through this table or something else?
Yeah. And Mark will show, we have our catchweights and then our 1-to-many. And so with our 1-to-many, we have cut templates off there, which, you can have your scrap parts, and that's kind of where you take it from that whole chicken to dividing it up into the various different pieces.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Yep. If you give me like 10 minutes, we're gonna be right there when I get through this catchweight stuff. That's what you're talking about as 1-to-many. I'm looking at just catchweights, and then we'll take a look at that. So I have a purchase order here. I'm gonna key in a whole chicken on here so we can just take a look very quickly at what the client interaction is based on the table that we've just seen. I'm going to grab my whole chicken, and then we're going to receive some of this in. Everything with catchweights, you're going to do right here on the transaction line. So whether I'm doing a transfer order, item receipt, inventory adjustment, a assembly build that's not 1-to-many, you're doing that right here on the NetSuite transaction line. And you'll see that when I receive in. So when I key in this whole chicken, our system is going to run in the background. Our software is running. It's saying, hey, is whole chicken an SVU item? Yes, it is. Okay, let me find the SVU table. What's the default purchasing order? So you can see this is already filled in with my load on here because I've set that to be the default purchasing order. And so with SVU items, we see purchase orders. We're purchasing a load. We don't know the weight of it quite yet. So I'm manipulating one of our custom fields called SVU quantity. That relates to the SVU unit, which is loads. So I'm saying, hey, I want to purchase 3 loads. On average, that's about 4,320 pounds. So then when we go to do the item receipt, that's when I'll capture what the actual weight of that load is. I can also flip this over. I have case set up. So if I flip this over to a case, Now I've got 3 cases. That's a dozen chickens. That's 72 pounds. So I have the ability to work with different SVU units on the transaction and have that calculate the average weight here into our quantity field. So that's a little bit of that client interaction there. I'll save this order and then we'll jump in and receive this whole chicken. We can take a look at our catch weight inventory detail and how that gets put into NetSuite. So I'll go ahead and transform this purchase order, going from purchase order right to item receipt. You don't have to transform with our system. You could punch an item receipt right on in. You can mix and match items on the transaction. So I can receive in a catch weight whole chicken and alongside other items that may not be a catch weight. So I'm going to bring in a case here. It's 1440 on average, but I received 1462.4. That's what came in off the truck. I'll assign this lot number. And so this is what we saw earlier. Charles showed this off, filling out the NetSuite inventory detail. What you'll notice, this is just pounds. There's no case count. There's no each count. And in our case here, there's no load count, right? So what our software does is we have our own sort of SVU inventory detail. Once you've filled out your NetSuite detail, you pop on into ours. And in this case, we're capturing the load count. If this was outbound selling cases, we would capture the case count. If the item was flip-flopped and we used eaches or cases to price, then we would come in here and capture the pound quantity or whichever quantity is missing from the line. That's what our software does is we add that other unit, whichever one it may be. So in this case, I'm capturing the load quantity. I'll submit that. That's locked in. I'm all set. So I can go ahead and save my item receipt. The way our catch weight inventory works is just like inventory in NetSuite. It has to be associated with a transaction, and it always is. Inventory in NetSuite, catch weight inventory, it doesn't move without there being a transaction. So with our software, when you do an item receipt, we put catch weight inventory in. You do a fulfillment, we take it out. So now I'll show you how we can take a look at that catch weights that we've just put in. I have an icon on the line here. I can open this up and this will kind of show me disabled what we just filled out as a way to view it there right on the transaction. And then the other primary use of our client application, like Tyler said, for catch weights, you get your item set up. And then, we typically don't see people touch those tables very often. But the other use for our application is I'm able to come in here, filter, manage, and look at catch weight inventory. So I have those 1462.4, and this is displaying it to me in base units. So that one load is 720 eaches. Our software does that in a way to facilitate case breakdown if you're using that feature. So this says 720 eaches, but fear not, because it's linked back to this item receipt, it understands that it is one load. When we look at the catch weight inventory with loads, cases, you kind of think of being able to put a different lens in front of it. So when I'm fulfilling or consuming this inventory, I can look at this 720 eaches as if it was a load or a crate. So that's a way that we can also do any case breakdown if that's a functionality that you need. So this is our SVU catch weight inventory detail. That's really the primary use of our client application. And you can also use inventory adjustments to put catch weight inventory in and out. So if you wanted to fulfill any of this inventory, adjust it out, you can do that directly from transaction in NetSuite. So I'll jump over to outbound now too, just to show what that process looks like on the outbound. I'll also show another catch weight table example because I've already set up some packaged chicken wings. You can see our NetSuite unit here again is the pound. So packaged chicken wings, this is an item that I cost by the pound, and then I sell it by the pound. So when you buy a case of packaged chicken wings, it's around 8 pounds. Let's say I'm putting 24 chicken wings in there, but you'll eventually get billed for whether it's 7.8 or 8.2. So I can also sell these in a bigger case, which is going to have 8 of the smaller cases in there. So this is really just for me to show off what this process looks like when we're consuming that inventory, because the item receipt puts inventory out. The other function we have is removing inventory. I've already got some of this received in, so I do have packaged chicken wings available in inventory. Like I said, 192 is the average. Let's say you actually got fulfilled 189.8. Upon item fulfillment from a sales order, that's where we would capture that, so we can then bill the customer for the actual weight instead of the average, which is on the sales order. So same exact thing here, only I'm fulfilling this inventory instead of receiving it. So this, I have my available catch weights, which we just saw. And then I also have the NetSuite inventory detail is listed here. So I need 189.8 to also match from catch weight. I've gone ahead and fulfilled that for you. So this says I need 3 cases. So I go ahead and capture that there. Who knows? Maybe it was 4 cases. So if there's anything different case-wise when we fulfill, we can capture that there as well. Go look at my packaged chicken wings here, and we can watch the inventory move out. It is so exciting. So I'll save this, and we'll be able to see that cases got fulfilled from inventory. So the item fulfillment is saved, and then upon the saving of this transaction, the catch weight inventory is removed. So I'll refresh this, research for my packaged chicken wing. You can see I have 56 eaches in here because I just fulfilled some out. And so that's really catch weights in a nutshell. It really is pretty simple. You get your table set up, you have your inventory detail, and then everything else lives right here on the transaction line and in NetSuite. And just kind of tie it all together a little bit. Because our solution lives entirely within NetSuite, there's some little customizations you can do. So for example, if you want to see your SVU inventory detail here, we can pull those custom records and add a custom save search. We could pull your units in here. We could add, to the item fulfillment, we could add another tab showing. So we have, we can build additional features directly into your NetSuite account because this software lives right in there. So that's catch weights. I don't know if there's any questions on item setup or the tables or inbound or outbound interaction.
What is the SVU and I think I saw LVU? What do those stand for again?
Right. So these are technical terms that we use to define the units on the table. Okay. Like I said, 98% of catch weight tables for food and bev is typically pound each case, right? We're able to apply this variable unit software to like a ton of different applications. So, we've looked at this for semiconductors and all sorts of different, items that have variable square inches, like tiling, stuff like that. We've looked at. So you're entering a technical area here. So I will warn you before. So we conceptualize units in our software. If you think of like those Russian dolls where you've got really small Russian doll that gets into another, right? That's kind of how we think of our units. So what LVU stands for is lowest variable. So it's the doll you find last when you unpick it. So for the purposes of our table, that means that every each in every case has a mandatory amount of pounds in it, right? There's no avoiding entering in a pound count. So that's what LVU signifies. And then SVU are these units that I'm setting up each case combo pack. Each we say is the SVU base unit. What that means is every case has a fixed amount of eaches in it. Every load has a fixed amount of eaches. Every pallet has a fixed amount of eaches. Every combo pack is 4 eaches, so that's 12 pounds or what have you, right? So the declaring the LVU and declaring the SVU is kind of your way of setting those Russian dolls up, right?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so through that, we're able to do the real curveball that was thrown our way was this semiconductor where they count the number of pins in the chip, but they priced it by the chip, but they manufacture it by it was a crazy thing. But our system can handle things like that. But like I said, 98% of the time with food and bev, it's super simple pound each case. And typically we see for food and bev, your NetSuite unit, how you're costing it is usually the pound. But like I said, with certain packaged cheese, you may record that it's 1.97 and not 2, and that's for seeing a variance in your system. Gotcha. We can handle it both.
Okay, thank you.
Well, yeah, I will now move on and show off one-to-many. We have scope for you guys, both one-to-many and catch weights. You can have either or. In the case of that, you will get some additional features in your account from this item dashboard. And once again, I'm going Suite Professionals processing to open up our client application. And this just loads data from your NetSuite account. So when you have catch weights, all you'll have is this item dashboard with variable units and inventory detail. That's all you get. When you have our one-to-many, that's when we add in our cut template features, and that's when we add in our batch creation and assembly building features. So you'll have the same application, and then we kind of plug our other features into it. So I'll go back to this whole chicken item. Well, first, what is one-to-many manufacturing? So we saw earlier, and Charles did a great job with this. He showed us that finished good, the bucket of shredded 8-ounce chicken. What we're doing there is just traditional assembly build, many to one. Your standard recipe. We're taking mayonnaise, paprika, celery, shredded chicken, and a bucket, and we're putting it all together. And that the cost of that item is the cost of the component. So that's your regular, many to one, like recipe building. What is one to many? Obviously, it's the opposite of that. So we're going to take this whole chicken and we're going to break it down into other items for inventory. Typically, what we see for this in food and bev is we're taking something like a whole chicken, which is like a raw material. One second. Excuse me. And we're going to break that down into what is raw materials for what are then sub-assemblies, right? So I've also overviewed the document that was set over. So I've kind of got a simplified version as well of what you guys are doing. So we have this whole chicken item in here. We've received this in. This can be a catch weight item or it cannot be a catch weight item. Like I said, we're not typically counting the eaches of chickens. It's typically just a pound value. The one I have here is each for the example. So bear with me. We can do it either way. So I'm now introducing us to the cut template. And a cut template is sort of a reverse bill of materials for this one-to-many manufacturing. And so I'm taking this whole chicken down. There could be, 10 different ways I have of breaking this chicken down. Let's say, you guys have a specialty retailer or a restaurant, that does some different options and we have a purpose to, get the feet. We have a purpose for the neck, the lizard, the gizzard. We have a way of breaking down this chicken where we want to have all of these items individually, right? Maybe the thighs we have recipes for, or like I said, we have a restaurant that does chicken liver. They're on some weird stuff. So we can set up cut templates that say, hey, how many different ways do we have of breaking down the chicken, and what is the typical expected output of those processes? So I'll jump over to another cut template. So this is a little more in line with what you guys are doing. I'm taking a chicken. I have some waste products. These are collected. Maybe you sell something with them. You know, maybe you write them off. Well, whatever you do with them. Some bones. It sounded like some of these get sold. Some of them are used in a broth subassembly. But the majority of what we get is cut raw chicken. However, if a chicken's got, some good looking wings, or we know we're also getting those, we can add those onto the cut template. So cut templates give us the ability to say, hey, how am I going to break these whole chickens down? And then what do I expect to get out of there? So now I know that you guys we're not always going to capture, we're not always taking the wings, the thighs, and the drumsticks off every single chicken. So we can set up another cut template. Let's say we get our cut raw chicken, and we're going to take this batch all the way down. Well, that wouldn't be one to many. That's just 1 to 1, right? At that point, if you're taking the whole chickens and turning them all into cut raw chicken. But let's say we have no intention of pulling any attractive pieces off the chicken. We can then come up here and add a new cut template that doesn't allow for the creation of these items. However, what these cut templates do is they just produce work orders in your system. So that transaction could have a commit inventory or some sort of expectation impact. The work order doesn't impact inventory. So we can generate a work order for the whole wing. And then if they don't get built, it doesn't matter. We can remove the work order, close it from the system, things of that nature. So cut templates, like I said before, they define, hey, when we break this whole chicken down, what items am I going to put into inventory after I'm done with that process? And as you see here, we can add different items here, so we can customize this based on different manufacturing. Like if you were working with beef primals, you might do different cuts. So I'll talk about what numbers we're seeing on here a little bit. With this item, this whole chicken, and this is a key moment. This is where our variable unit catch weight application here is talking with our one-to-many processing application over here. So all these values are pound values. So the cut template is based on we're manufacturing one each, which weighs 2 pounds. All these values over here are going to add up to 2 pounds. And so it's essentially we're creating it's like a ratio, so to speak, is how you could think about that. That's cut templates really. Whole chicken, make a new cut template. How am I breaking it down, and what am I putting into inventory when I'm done with all that, right? And if you have catch weights and our one-to-many, you can see that they kind of talk to each other. This chicken waste item is not catch weight item. There's no eaches or cases of chicken waste, right? It's just pounds. So all I have here is 0.3 pounds. But the whole wing chicken, I want to count my eaches for the wings so that I can build cases of 8, right? So with the whole wing, this has a each catch weight unit set up. So this is going to be 2 eaches that weigh about 0.17 pounds each. So there's some interaction between the two systems there. I'll jump over to creating a batch of work orders from one of these cut templates. I'll tie a whole lot of this together for you. So again, I'm in our client application here. I'll jump over to creating a batch of work orders, but actually really quick before I do that, as Charles has shown, when we take work orders and we build them into assemblies, we need to define a bill of materials. So I've gone ahead and created bill of materials in here. These are very simple because in this example, I'm really just taking, a raw whole chicken and turning it into another raw whole chicken item. So this can be very simple. 1 pound of whole chicken is going to be 1 pound of chicken bones. So we have a pound to pound usage there on our bill of materials. Compatible with yield. If you wish to use a yield on here, you're welcome to do that. And then that'll kind of flow over into your work orders when they're built from our application. I also have added onto here a labor item because it's going to, take some cost, some amount, some hours of labor to break this whole chicken down. Got about 0.1 per pound there. That's a lot. So just bear with me because it's arbitrary. You'll see on the right here some more of our custom fields that are specific to our processing application. So 3 fields here: cost percentage, charge item distribution, and charge item calculation. We have a ton of possibilities here, so I am not going to go into all of them. An example would be, hey, if you have someone that, if you want to cost it per each of finished good, we can automate a charge like that. If you have a cost that you incur once for the batch, we can automate a charge like that. This specific example I have here, I've said that this is a even input charge. You'll see that more in a minute. But what this basically is saying is I'm going to provide it with an input. So this batch took 6 hours to complete. And then because it's even, it'll take those 6 hours and it's going to distribute those to items of our cut template. So that's a way. I'm sorry, I don't have that item open up anywhere. So that's a way, and you'll see that when I do the process, how we can sort of influence the cost of these finished goods. Because if you look at the bill of materials here, if it's a 1-to-1 whole chicken to chicken wing, then the costs are not the same. Then the cost of the wing is the same as the raw chicken. So by adding in, labor, machine time, other costs like that, we're able to better define what the cost of this item and that process actually is. So that's the bill of materials I have here. Jump back in. I'll go this way so we can keep doing it that way.
Is the bill of material the same thing as the recipe that we were looking at earlier?
Yeah, they're the same thing. Yes. Cool. So I'm back in my application here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm trying to follow how the 1 pound of whole chicken equals 1 pound of wings, or maybe I just didn't hear that part right.
Right. So if I have a chicken that weighs 4 pounds and I pull a 1 pound wing off of it, how much of the whole chicken is that? It's 1 pound. So that's the logic behind that.
Oh, so it's a portion of the whole chicken. Okay.
Right. So, think of it, if we take an inventory item, like if you have a pizza that costs $8, you cut it in 4, that's still an $8 pizza. Like, if you just break the chicken down without applying any other cost to it, none of the parts will have a different cost than the whole.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to jump back in to my application. I'm going to go back and just have these cut templates available for reference here. Cool. So I'm going to jump in. We're at the work orders create batch step. This is specific to our one-to-many application. So I'll grab my whole chicken. That's the item we are breaking down. Where are we doing said manufacturing? And now we're ready to put a batch of work orders into the system. What our cut template is going to do is it's essentially going to create one work order for every item on that cut template. And then the one-to-many application ties all of those together. And we treat it as if it is one transaction. But in NetSuite, you still have those separate work orders. And that helps us leverage native NetSuite and help you process a batch without developing some crazy custom transaction type or anything. So it's a little bit of what's going to be the output of this process. So as I'm doing my manufacturing here, I get to choose between my cut templates. So, and I can do multiple batches. So if your production manager is here, they're able to add one template. I can add in a whole other cut template. I could issue work orders for several days with several different templates all from this one screen. So this is kind of our cut template's been loaded in here, sort of as input here. You can make modifications for the purposes of breaking a chicken down. It's not like we have some chicken that have 3 feet all of a sudden. So, modifying the quantity per component is not really as applicable to food and bev as it may be for some manufacturing scenarios. So unless you knew ahead of time that, some chicken's going to give you more waste than another, there's really no reason for this process to mess with any of that. What you're really going to do is come in here and say, hey, I got 200 eaches I'm about to manufacture. I got 500 eaches I'm about to manufacture. Because this whole chicken has that default component each that we saw earlier, I'm working with this like it's a catch weight item. If this were not a catch weight item, this value up here would be 300 pounds. Because this is catch weight, this is 200 eaches, not 200 pounds. So you can see it's done some math for us. If I've got 200 chickens, there's probably 400 wings present, probably 400 feet present there. So these other items on the batch, like I said before, I have some catch weight items, some non-catch weight items. This chicken waste has done something. I think I did something there. Okay, regardless. We're able to say, hey, I'm going to break down 200 eaches, and I expect to get 400 thighs at, about a tenth of a pound each for 52 pounds total, right? We can flip between different templates. So this is how we're issuing work orders in the system. Come to our next step here. And really at this page, we're just verifying what's here. And we also have the ability to set the work orders in the system to be released or not. So if you have your own approval process for work orders, if you want to put them in as planned, leave this toggle off. If you want to go ahead and put them released so they're available on the floor, we'd go ahead and have that active. And then from here, we're going to submit our batch of work orders. Like I said earlier, what this is doing in your NetSuite account, we're making one work order here, one work order here, one work order here. So we're going to have work orders for every item of output. And then our system ties them together with a unique processing ID. And as well, we tag the cut template that you've used on here. So you can see I've got batch with processing ID 5 created, and then here are all my work order numbers. So I'll go into NetSuite, refresh my work orders. You'll be able to see I have work orders for all of these items that I'm about to build. But because we issued it through our create batch work order screen, we were able to assign it this processing ID number 5. So that processing ID 5, like I said, in our system, it ties all of these transactions together, and we're able to treat it sort of as one transaction, even though in NetSuite we have these kind of 9 stages there to put your assembly items in. So we've gone ahead and got this in. So when you work with a one-to-many batch, when you're creating them, when you're building them, when you're modifying cut templates, that has to be done through our client application for us to achieve our custom fields on there, such as the batch number, the cut template, and if you have the catch weight module as well, we also handle that. So when you're building a one-to-many batch, it has to come through our client. And then when we build that batch as well, because our system is going to treat it sort of as one batch transaction, that also has to be done through this application. So I'll go ahead and grab, I have some work orders already in the system. I'm gonna grab an older one because I think I deleted a value on the cut template earlier. So this is a batch that's identical. I'm gonna be breaking down 200 whole chicken eaches into cut raw chicken. I might grab a couple wings off it. And then there's going to be some waste and some bones as well. So I'll pop in here. And this is our batch assembly build screen. So we saw the work order process earlier that Charles showed off. When I go create a build for a work order, all that's happening is I'm removing ingredients from inventory, and then I'm putting an assembly item into inventory, and we're capturing the cost of those along the way. So I'm going to jump back into Sorry, I have a lot going on. Our batch order screen. So our screen here works the same way. First step is to consume components, right? So how much whole chicken did I use here? And this is catch weight inventory on the left, because this is a catch weight item. So this is our custom catch weight inventory coming through. If it's not a catch weight item, you see your NetSuite inventory there. So add all here. Now this was 200 eaches, 400 pounds, but we didn't actually use 400 pounds. Let's say we used 403.4 pounds, because we're no longer working on the averages that Catchweight provided us. We're capturing what actually happened on the manufacturing floor during this process. So I've gone ahead and consumed my whole chickens from inventory. And
so this is where it's telling you, I'm kind of thinking this is like it's a pick list. I don't know if that's the right term, but so in the morning I come in and I have to run production. I'm going to this screen and looking here where those blue boxes are to know what to pull out of the fridge and bring them into the, essentially it's called a raw room, but it's like production.
This screen would be, so what I'm doing here is I'm recording what actually happened during that manufacturing process. So you wouldn't come here and finalize component consumption or finalize assemblies built, because the result of this process is inventory out and then inventory in. So you're not coming to this screen until you're done with that manufacturing step and you're finalizing that in the system.
Okay, so maybe I missed the part where there's the start. How do they pull stuff? How do they know what to pull off the shelves in order to produce what needs to be produced that day?
Yeah, and that's not something that the one-to-many application interacts with. Those decisions are made, and then you put the batch work orders in, based off of that information. There's nothing that, is going to feed it into our system to do that.
Okay. So that's back on the part of the work order stuff we talked about earlier.
Yeah, with with the cut templates, the cut templates gives you a way to manipulate the work orders going into the system, perhaps based on a demand or something. But we don't currently have like any built-in planning or anything like that.
Okay.
So they would kind of have to know what they intend on doing first, and then come into our application, and then they're going to come to this screen, get all this, and so at this point they already know what they want to produce as far as what's coming out of the whole chicken. So then they would come in here and perhaps manipulate what output between my cut templates best matches what I need going forward. So you can do that that's what the cut templates kind of intend to do, is, hey, I should break down 100 like this because it'll give me this, and I'll break down the other 100 like this to give me this. But any information that influence those decisions, our software unfortunately doesn't do any of that at this time.
And the templates have to be developed, I'll say, behind the scenes or ahead of time, or once they pull the chicken into the room and start cutting it up and looking at it, can they decide at that moment how much is going to go to sold parts that are raw and how much is going to ultimately get cooked? Because sometimes that does flex just based on whatever the chicken looks like, I guess,
Right. Good question. So with cut templates are set up ahead of time. So cut templates are going to be set up before you ever, I consider this part of, not your basic item setup, but your advanced item setup. So we would want to do this before you ever, before manufacturing with it was even a twinkle in your eye. We would want to figure this out. So what we see with, so you're right, the food and beverage, this is a little bit more flexible, right? So with some manufacturing scenarios, like it's set in stone. When when I destroy the geode, I'm going to get six whatever. It's more rigid in other scenarios. So when you need flexibility from a cut template, typically what we've seen there is and again, there are still scenarios in food and bev where you're going to do something a certain way, and the cut template certainly is best at that, right? So when you have a really flexible, fluid sort of process like that, my recommendation is you would add every possible item you can get, build work orders for them, and then when you're done with the assembly process, go in there and close out those work orders. So by having the item on the template and there's a work order out, you'll be able to build it. But if there's not a work order there, we couldn't add it to that process in that moment. So it would have to already be set up. So perhaps for that, we would add our, what did I call it? Raw. I think I added it. Yeah. So we could go ahead, add our cut raw chicken, add our, any possible item we could take off this chicken on any given day. We'd add to one big cut template, set up some baseline averages. And again, all this does is kind of put work orders into your system. So it's there, it's available to build. And then when you're building it, it'll be available on this step. You can just simply choose not to include it if you didn't do any on that day. So that's how our system would handle a really fluid process like that. Is you would have to go ahead and have that item on there and available, kind of similar to what Charles had said about the bill of materials. We're like, hey, if you have a scenario where we add water to the broth instead of it just being broth, well, you have to go ahead and have that bill of materials in the system, right? If you ever intend on building it that way. So it's similar in that regard.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay, so wait, where am I? Okay, batch number 3. I'm building this batch. This is finalizing the batch. So like I said, we wouldn't be in here until we're done with the batch. We know what we consumed. We know what we built. First thing I did was I consumed our one-to-many component. This is flagged because, hey guys, it's the parent of the cut template. It's the item that all of these items come from. So that's our one-to-many component. And I can jump over to other components. And then in here, I'll see I have that labor item that I added to the bill of materials. If you have other items that are coming in here, maybe there's some machine time, maybe there's some packaging. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and put the bones in some sort of packaging. I don't know, what have you. If you have other things coming in from the bill of materials, they'll come in here, whether they're exclusive to the work order or in this case, this is shared across the batch. Every single item that I'm building here had labor from that same process. So that's why we're seeing this as batch 3 instead of as work order 357. Because like I said, our system is treating these 9 work orders as a single entity. It doesn't fill them out like that, but we're treating it in here like this. So let's say this process took me 20 hours. It's really bad. We're going out of business soon. So 20 hours. I have this set up as input even. I'll come in here and we can assign some lots, and I'll show off what happens with assembly builds and with our labor charge item. So again, I'm capturing the actuals here. 403.4 was what I consumed. Nobody's perfect. So this is 190.4. Let's say we got 37 pounds of bones. Maybe chicken wings were 41.5. Maybe we got some wings didn't come through, or they were just bad, so they went into waste or whatever. You get my point here. We're finalizing what the actual output of this product was. And again, you can see some of these items are catch weight items. I have 396 eaches at a weight, whereas my cut raw chicken is not a catch weight item. There's no each or case or pallet to capture with cut raw chicken. I'm simply putting in 190.4. So this one-to-many process can handle whether you have catch weights there or not. So I'll go ahead and submit this. And then as you'd expect, behind the scenes in NetSuite, our software is taking these work orders. It's going through the work orders one by one. It's creating builds from them, and it's applying inventory consumed labor, and then we're building inventory from that as well. So these will build, and then I'll jump in and I'll crack one open, and I can show you resulting cost and how this input even labor has affected that. So let me refresh my assembly builds. I've got a build for every item of the batch. Crack these open. See, what one do I have? Chicken thighs. Okay, so I have 52 pounds built. If I go to the custom tab, you can see that I've got eaches. This is 400 individual thighs at 52 pounds. Ingredients used. 52 pounds of whole chicken were used here. That's because 52 pounds of wings is 52 pounds of chicken. We've also applied our labor cost here. This is 3.33. You notice if I open up every single work order, they will all be 3.33. That's because this system was set up to distribute this 20 hours of labor evenly to all of these items. So if all of these items, therefore, are going to have the same exact cost. So with these bill of materials customizations, this one, just for the sake of example, showing how we can have all these items carry the same value of labor, right? What we can also do with these bill of materials customizations and through the app is we could also have it apply a greater percentage of that labor or a greater percentage of some other cost you've incurred. And we've seen this in beef manufacturing where they want like a ribeye or a nice cut like that to carry a higher part of the cost. So the same way we've kind of distributed this labor cost evenly, we can also set it up to distribute in one place perhaps more than the other or based on some other values. So we have some ways that we can impact the cost of these finished goods. So like I said earlier, cut template really defines what we're putting into inventory. And that's what the result of an assembly build is. So now, let me go back to my cut template. So now that I've built this, I have chicken waist, whole wings, thighs, drumsticks, bones, and cut raw chicken all in inventory. Cut raw chicken, I can take and put into another assembly process and get my steamed chicken. And then I can put it into another assembly process and I can have my, final shredded chicken. These drumsticks, thighs, and wings, I can take some of them, put them in another assembly process, combine them with more labor, packaging material, and put a label on them. And now, we've assembled them into a finished good item for retail or packaging otherwise. These bones, now I have these in inventory. Again, we can put these into a sub-assembly for broth, or maybe some of them get sold out the door to restaurants or what have you. And then again, I have chicken waste in inventory. This can be sold. You can take the value of it and do what you wish with it in accounting. But the output of this one-to-many process is always these items here in inventory. And that ladies and gentlemen, is the one-to-many application. I know it's a ton. It's a lot, really to take in all at once. So if anyone has any questions or anything, I'm happy to field those